Did you catch this moment from President Trump's campaign rally in New Hampshire last night? A protest broke out in the crowd, and a Trump supporter tried to remove the protesters. Let me repeat that. A Trump supporter. That's when the president said this.
That guy's got a serious weight problem. Go home, start exercising. Get him out of here, please. Got a bigger problem than I do. Got a bigger problem than all of us. Now he goes home and his mom says, "What the hell have you just done?"
The president clearly thought the man he was insulting was a protester, not one of his own supporters. And frankly, Donald Trump has long trafficked in that kind of bullying and insults, but always aimed at protesters, simply because they disagree with him, even encouraging violence against them.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Go home to your mom, darling. Go home. Get him out of here. Out. Was that a man or a woman? Because he needs a haircut more than I do. Go. Couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. Needs a haircut. If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise. I promise. Go home to mommy. Bye. Bye. Get him out. Try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it.
After last night's rally, after the president fat-shamed his own supporter, well, he was briefed on his mistake. And CNN's Caitlin Collins reports that he called the man and left a message thanking him for his support. But a White House official said that he did not apologize, making it very clear the president did not even use the words sorry or apologize, God forbid. Although that Trump supporter, by the way, seems to have gotten the closest thing to an apology from this president, who actually smoothed things over when he realized that his mistake was that he'd used his favorite weapon of choice, insults, on someone who was actually on his side. So it seems that the right to free speech for this president applies if you agree with him. But things are very different when it comes to people who disagree with the president. Then you get punished for exercising your free speech rights. This week, he urged Israel to ban two of his perceived political opponents, Congresswomen Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and Israel followed suit. It did that after he tweeted last month that those congresswomen and two others should go back to the countries they came from, which would be America, because those congresswomen are U.S. citizens. Then the president stood by while his supporters chanted his own racist words.
Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
The president encouraging that racist chant. Those words, why? Because the congresswomen have spoken out against him and against his policies. And that's something he just cannot tolerate, not being surrounded by yes men and women. And that brings me to this. The free speech the president cares most about is his own. And we know how much he needs a big crowd there to hear his words. And this week, he got one at his energy rally in Pennsylvania. But let's take a closer look at that speech at a Shell plant. It was supposed to be about energy policy, which is an official taxpayer-funded event. Instead, it turned into a rambling campaign speech, including joking about calling off the 2020 election.
Have they ever called off an election before? Just said, look, just let's go. Go on, 4 more years. Yeah. And then you want to really drive them crazy, go to hashtag 3rd term, hashtag 4th term. You'll drive them totally crazy.
The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is reporting that Shell and its contractors gave the audience full of union workers a choice. The choice of either showing up for the president's speech or taking the day off without pay. Now, the event was classified as a training session. The workers' attendance wasn't mandatory. It wasn't mandatory, but if they wanted to get paid for that day, they'd have to show up at 7 a.m. and scan their cards, stand for hours with no lunch, and listen to a guest speaker, the President of the United States. Now, I'm certain that a lot of those workers were happy to be there. One of the local union managers told the Post-Gazette, "We're glad to have the jobs," and said anyone who didn't want to show up was free to do so. But if you didn't want to be there and you decided to sit out the event, you not only wouldn't get paid that day, but you wouldn't qualify for overtime pay today. One union leader telling the paper, losing one day of pay could cost a worker around $700. So you had a choice not to go, as long as you were willing to forfeit a chunk of your weekly salary. Is that putting a price on free speech? Free speech, which the President of the United States is supposed to be defending at all costs. Free speech means nothing if you only support it for views that you like. What is America if not a nation founded, a nation of dissenters? But a true patriot would actually know that. Joining me now to discuss, Nayyera, former Obama White House senior director. Fabulous to have you on the show and great to see you, Nayyera. You know, Nayyera, the president had all these union workers behind him for what was supposed to be a speech focused on energy policy, and instead, Nayyera, they got this. Take a listen.
I did very well here. We did very well. How many points did we win by? Does anybody know? I'll tell you. Isn't it, I think, 28 points? That's a lot. That's against a Democrat. Or whatever. What a group. Pocahontas and Sleepy Joe. I don't think they give a damn about Western Pennsylvania. You know, the Academy Awards is on hard times now. You know that. Nobody wants to watch it. You know why? Because they started taking us on. And now it's just another show because people got tired of people getting up and making fools of themselves. This thing is costing me a fortune being president. Every day they sue me for something.
Nayyera, we don't have time to fact-check all the things that are actually demonstrably false there. But ultimately, what I want you to talk about is, did the president do something like a bait and switch to these workers? Is that what happened here, a bait and switch?
Oh, absolutely. And the problem is that we've really gotten used to and comfortable with the bait and switch because it's become the norm with Donald Trump. The history of presidential campaigns and the intersection with the office of the presidency is that the campaign pays for campaign time. And when you're going to do something on behalf of taxpayers, for example, talking about infrastructure, we've all been waiting for Infrastructure Week and that investment that's supposed to come into our roads and bridges and energy grid, that gets paid on the taxpayer dime. When Donald Trump uses taxpayer dollars to do this type of event, he's not only blurring the lines and undermining all of the ethics, he's fundamentally undermining the democracy and the rules we've all decided that we're going to live by. And unfortunately, it's coming at the expense of hardworking Americans who now are just along for the ride.
You know, you have great experience in this area, particularly international diplomacy in the area. You're the right person to talk about this. The president went after and used a foreign leader to try to keep congresswomen out of Israel. Now, Netanyahu defended Israel's ban, partly by comparing it to a 2012 decision by the U.S. to deny a visa to a member of the Israeli Knesset. But those are totally different situations. That member had also been a member of a far-right group that's now deemed a terrorist organization by both the U.S. and Israeli government. So what's your response to the idea that the president encouraged this and Netanyahu's response?
We've known Israel as the only democracy in the Middle East, as our strong ally for defending values of freedom and freedom of religion and freedom of speech. That's part of why, even though Israel had designated this organization as a terrorist organization, because this person was a duly elected representative, they defended him and gave him a seat in their Knesset. Now, U.S. laws are a little stricter than that. If you are a felon and convicted felon, you can't run for office, let alone vote. But the idea that Donald Trump would actually undermine the freedom of speech of his opposition. And mind you, this is not the only group of people that have argued against restrictions to Israel. Groups of members of Congress have been going to Israel for years, have seen both sides, multiple sides of the issue. In fact, the same group that was going to bring Rashida Tlaib and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar had brought 4 men just a couple of weeks earlier. There seems to be something very personal for Donald Trump with these 2 members of Congress in particular, and the fact that he encouraged another government to undermine them as representatives really speaks a lot about where we are in the American experiment and where we are with the social contract we've made with our government. And where we are is that it's all at risk right now.
Nayyera Haq, your words. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And of course, it's personal indeed, especially given the context you have given us. Thank you for being a part of the show today.
Thank you, Laura.